Hello everyone, happy you could be here. Let's dive in. Sit at My Grave, Season 3, Ego's Death, Chapter 2. Arden couldn't seem to stand still. He checked his phone for the time, also noticing he hadn't gotten any replies, at least not any he was hoping for. He shook his head a bit, slipping his phone back into his pocket before folding his arms. He glanced down the street from the sidewalk he stood on, but frowned with a sigh when he saw no signs of the bus he was waiting on. He was trying hard to just focus on his trip and make sure he did everything right by getting there, but it was difficult to do so when there was other things bubbling in the back of his mind. Arden couldn't deny the fact he was uncomfortable. He hadn't even fully left the state yet, but he'd already started to feel the pressure of being around so many strangers, watching as the city around him moved at a fast pace. Getting his plane ticket hadn't been easy, or cheap. It was a pain to just get out of the country. Everything about planning that trip was terrible. So many terms he wasn't used to. Every time he thought he was getting somewhere, turned out not to be the correct fit for him. Arden checked his phone again to look at his flight details briefly. It was going to be a long way there. Many of the places he looked to book a flight with wanted to couple him with a hotel to get in right on his arrival there. Most seemed to assume he was planning a tourist trip. Arden hadn't been positive which was best. The whole package bills just seemed expensive to him. Also, they wanted more details on when he'd be arriving and exactly when he'd be flying back. Those were things he just couldn't answer accurately. With a little shuffle in place and quick glance at people passing him, Arden searched for that bus again, only to find it still wasn't there. He sighed out in frustration. But as long as he'd been there, he was getting tempted to sit on the bench and wait, but it looked horrible. A spill of something, a half-eaten sandwich on it. However, if he had to wait any longer on his feet, he'd consider just trying to scrape it aside and sitting down anyway. But still, he wasn't that desperate. He didn't want to touch it. He stood there, impatiently tapping his foot. While he waited, he began thinking over planning his flight. He again wondered if he made the right decisions with everything. Surely he was overthinking, but he had a right to, he supposed. It was his first real solo trip. Well, not completely solo. Arden glanced down at his suitcases. He only had two. They weren't very big, but within them was his traveling buddy. A lot happened before Arden left. Some events were very jarring. His mind was still in shock. He found himself disappointed with the people involved, but mainly with himself. His jaw clenched, and his hands went sweaty at the memory. Again, he tried to get his mind on other things. His leaving hadn't been completely bad. A nice surprise that came from the McKinneys. Telling Genevieve and the family he wouldn't be around to babysit didn't go over perfectly. And maybe it was the fact that he didn't know when he'd see any of them again, or the fact that he made up in his mind the risk of this trip. But when Genevieve got upset about it, he could feel the twinge inside himself too. He wouldn't call it a sad memory. It was upsetting though. However, it was a lot better than how things went in different aspects of his departure. Arden tried to think of that instead. You don't have to tell us where you're going, but you better call us when you get there, okay? Genesis told Arden sternly. He'd taken the time to tell them he wouldn't be coming back while he was getting his last pay. He should expect their generosity and genuine concern for him by now, but the fact that they cared so much still made him feel a bit out of place. It did feel nice to be thought of and fussed over just like they'd done their own children. Arden felt bad about the little lies he had to tell. He didn't tell them exactly where he was going, but he did convince them it was involved in school, that he and his mother had already talked about it. You're leaving me too? Genevieve asked sadly. Thankfully, she began making a few friends at school by then. She always looked forward to hanging out with Arden. Jenny, I know you're upset, but we have to support Arden, just like we did your brother, okay? Wish him good luck, Declan told her, patting her head. Okay, she replied sourly. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve before looking up at Arden. Arden, in the back of his head, was wishing he just texted them about it and got his money later. He shouldn't keep thinking of other people's feelings as just drama, but he never knew what to do in these situations, even if he did understand why they were so upset. I promise I won't cry this time. I'm gonna miss you, Genevieve said with a little hiccup. I'm a big girl, she told him, sniffling. Arden swallowed stiffly, looking down at her. Big girls can cry too, sweetie. We'll all miss Arden, Declan told her gently. Before he knew it, Genevieve was jumping into his arms, and he caught her, holding her up, while she hugged on to him. He didn't like it when she first started doing this, but if it would make her stop freaking out, he was sure he could give her one hug before he left. Declan, come here for a moment, Genesis gestured for her husband. We'll be back to pry her off, don't worry, Declan assured him with a little dry laugh before he left after Genesis. Are you gonna miss me back? Genevieve asked, looking at Arden, tilting her head. What was there to miss? Couldn't have any real conversations with someone as young as her. And reading dumb stories and playing dolls certainly wasn't something he'd be begging to do again. Arden looked into his sad, watery eyes, waiting on an answer. He scrunched up his face a bit, mulling over what to tell her. Of course, he planned on coming back home successful, so surely he'd see her again. But saying it that bluntly didn't seem quite right. Arden? Genevieve questioned in confusion. Arden sighed. He'd probably regret this, but while I'm gone, collect some more books. I'll read them to you when I get back, Arden told her. He watched her eyes light up as he spoke. Promise? She asked excitedly. She was so happy with something so simple. It was laughable. He wondered this before, but decided now was as good a time as any to ask. Why do you like me so much? Arden questioned. He could have answered that himself before, back when he still held himself so high above everyone. And maybe he still did a little, but a kid couldn't recognize his intelligence. He was sure he wasn't as fun as her actual brother. Yet, she seemed so bubbly whenever he was around her. It would probably be a dumb answer, but he had to know. Because Genevieve seemed to think it over briefly while Arden put her down. My heart feels happy when you're here, she answered, grinning. He was at a loss of words. It was so simple, yet. Arden gave her a small smile. He felt bad for not wanting her around before, but he told himself he was going to get so much better for everyone. Here you are, Arden. Declan came back with Genesis, handed Arden an envelope before shaking his hand. Take care of yourself, he told him. Make sure you call us and your mom with every step, okay? Don't forget, Genesis lightly scolded him. And don't take any candy from strangers, Genevieve chimed in eagerly, causing her parents to chuckle a bit. All right, well, see ya, Arden said, about to leave. Wait! Genevieve stopped him, startling everyone. She ran away as fast as she could. Be careful! Genesis called after her. Within a couple of minutes, she was back with a plush in her hand. Here's your traveling buddy, she said, catching her breath. She held up a stuffed giraffe to him. Honey, are you sure you won't miss that? Declan asked her. Arden needs it more. He's gonna be all by himself, Genevieve told her dad. She looked back up at Arden, extending the toy towards him. Thanks, Genevieve, Arden said. It was stupid. It wouldn't keep him company, obviously, but he bit his tongue on saying that and just accepted it. It was a nice gesture. He would be lonely.